Hi everybody, welcome and thanks for tuning in. Today is a special day because we're going to begin the next chapter on the 1952 Willys pickup truck here. If you're just now joining me on this project and you have not seen the previous episodes, we spent the last 2 years going through this truck mechanically. I'm not even going to begin to tell you what all we did to it. But right now she's a runner. She could be a daily driver, but the decision has been made to go ahead and paint the truck. So as you guys know, that opens up an entirely different can of worms, an entirely different set of challenges for us. I know a lot of you out there that did watch the series have told me, hey, leave the truck the way it is. It's a cool patina truck. I might normally agree with you because I do like the patina look, at least sometimes. Like on my 53 Chevy over there, I think that's an awesome patina look. Now, not all patina vehicles look good to me. It's hard to define it. It's hard to explain why some look good and others don't. But regardless, the metal on this truck, the body panels, the fenders, the cab, it's not in very good condition and it needs to be addressed. Otherwise, it's just going to rot away over time. So now I'm going to do a walk around. I want to show you the truck up close, show you some of the bad spots, some of the good spots, and just kind of give you guys an idea of what we're in for here. We're going to start with the good stuff, and one of those things is the top of the cab. It doesn't look like to me that it's ever been crushed or dented. It's still got that nice curved line to it, so that is good news. I mean, it looks like it's got a couple dings here and there, but overall the top of the cab is in good shape. Come down to the cowl here, and the same thing for the cowl. It doesn't look like this truck has ever been smashed or dented on top, because the cowl really looks good. I don't see any significant bondo or anything in here. And again, the lines are really nice on it. Same thing with the hood. It's still got the nice curves to it and the nice line here where it changes. And if we look underneath, you can see that there's no wrinkles under here. It's never been smashed or bent or twisted or anything. Doesn't look like. Everything's nice and flat. So that's the good stuff. Let me show you the rest. We'll start in the front here. You can see this crack right here. There's a lot of that throughout the whole truck. And you can see how thick this old paint and bondo is. If you look at it from the side, hopefully you'll get an idea of it. And beneath all the layers of paint and bondo, when you get down to metal, you can see how rough and rusted that is. The rest of the grill here, you see all these little orange spots just all over the place. That is rust coming up through the paint. So basically in all these little areas where you see orange rust colored spots, we don't know the condition of the metal underneath there. It could be just like this. Just like the top of the cab and the hood and the cowl, it doesn't look like any of these fenders have been crushed or smashed, because the lines are still pretty good on them. But the preparation from that last paint job, whoever did that and whenever that was really not very good at all. I'm going to come around here to the side. You can see some more significant cracking. Again, with the orange stuff, that's rust coming up from underneath the paint, and we don't know what that looks like yet. And that stuff is just all over the place on this truck. The fender continues down here, goes all the way over underneath right there, and it also includes this little piece right here. So when we remove the fenders, that's going to come with it. This part here is part of the cab. It's part of the cowl, or the side of the cab. If you come down here to this, you see where the tip of my screwdriver is. That is a split. I can actually get my screwdriver in there. And that split, or that crack, goes from here all the way down to somewhere down here. I can poke my screwdriver all the way through. So this was either a former patch job that has failed, or something else weird has happened, because the metal doesn't usually split on such a perfect line like that. So I'm guessing that was a former patch job. These magnets are cool, but a lot of times what happens with them is that moisture will get trapped underneath the magnet, and the best case scenario is it will ruin your paint, and the worst case scenario is it will ruin your paint and rot the metal away. This side isn't quite that bad yet, but the other side is. Let me go show you that side. There used to be a magnet here too, you can see the outline of it, and this is what I'm talking about. There's also a big dent here from something in the past, but that's secondary to what I'm talking about right now. That moisture underneath the magnet has gotten into the metal, and we've got some rot right there, and right there, and right there. You probably can't tell on camera how thick that is, but that's some pretty thick bondo and stuff. You can see a little bit of the body filler right there. I think it's that green stuff, and this cracking goes down all the way down here. So I think what somebody did is just instead of fixing this dent, they just covered it with bondo the whole way down. And then if we come down all the way to the bottom, we can see we got a serious problem down here. A huge hole with rot all the way around it. We'll come over to the driver's fender now here, and you see this dark green stuff? I'm pretty sure that's the original color of the truck, and I absolutely love that dark green color on these old Willys trucks. I think it really looks good on them. For some reason it's very thick right here on the corner, so we must have some body filler in here. There might be a dent or something right there, but the top of the fender is good. And then this rust coloration just all over. That's, like I said before, we just don't know how bad it is until we get the paint removed. We've got some more stuff here on this driver's door. It's pretty thick right there. And we've got some old, I don't know if those are factory holes for a side view mirror or what those were for. But we got a broken off bolt in one of them, and the others are rusting on the inside. Somebody's installed these mirrors at some point, which I actually like. Okay, I like the look of the mirrors, but we're gonna have to obviously do something with these, probably replace them. And I don't like how they were mounted. The top mount is okay, but I don't like how they're mounted on the bottom. They just drilled into the door skin, and it's not that thick. So let me go show you the other side. The door skin is just not very thick here, and it's just not the best way to mount something with just some sheet metal screws. You know what I mean? It's just gonna do this over time is exactly what's going to happen. They're going to get loose, they're going to pull the skin of the door out just like it did there a little bit. So we have to decide if we want to keep the same style of mirrors, then okay, but we're going to have to make a better mount for the bottom. Like I say, the top is actually okay. The metal's a little bit thicker up here, but that's just another thing to add to the list. The rear fenders are generally in a little bit worse condition than the front fenders. You can see how much cracking and peeling we have going on. But the good news, again, just like the fronts, I don't think these rear fenders have ever been crushed because they seem to be very flat. They still have the nice lines on the side and the curves. We got a lot of issues going on that's going to have to be fixed. Some more questionable stuff here and a little bit here. Down above the tailpipe here, we've got a big whammy right there. Somehow it got popped out. This white stuff almost looks like it's house paint, and they just like put it on thick and just didn't prepare the surfaces right. Let me show you the other fender real quick. More of the same stuff here. Doesn't look like it's been crushed, but we clearly have cracking. We've got a big split right there, and then we've got a huge something split or rot and all of the above right there. That's pretty deep. This passenger cab corner is terrible. I don't know if you can see how deep that is on camera, but my screwdriver goes in there almost 1/4 of an inch between the outer skin and the inner metal. And again, this has just been rotting from inside out for a long time. Okay, now let's talk about the bed. Unfortunately, I think the bed is the worst part of the whole truck. I think so much so that it might not even be savable at all. Now let me show you what we're dealing with here. So first of all, if we look down inside these bed channels, you can see how rusty and rotten it is down inside there. They're pretty much all the same. This one's probably the worst. And that's how the tailgate is too. Anywhere you can look down inside these open channels in the steel, it's rusted and rotten. And it's so bad that you can actually see it coming out from the seams here. There's some actual holes right there. Big old crack right there. You guys remember when I repaired this ear here for the chain hook? This whole area up here in the corner was basically rotten. Some was missing, and we didn't have anything to mount this tab to. So what I did here was I cut out all the bad metal, welded in good metal, fabricated this tab right here, and then welded the tab to the good metal. So essentially what I did here is what we're going to have to do to the whole truck. We're going to have to cut out all the rotten metal and weld in new metal. Back to the bed just real quick. This right bed rail is straight-ish. Not terrible, it's not great either, but it's not horrible. But this left bed rail is pretty bad. Up here by the spare wheel, you can see we got a huge whammy right up there. It looks like at some point this wheel got pushed in with a lot of force and it bent the bed right there. The bed is also bent up front near the cab. You can see right in the middle there, big old bow. The tailgate is also bowed. It curves like this, and it's also got a concave to it on this side. The bed itself is all still present and intact, but there's huge valleys and mountains in here. You can see how warped it is. So I reserve the right to change my mind later, but so far with this quick walk around, this cursory examination, I think most of the stuff can be fixed. The fenders, you know, even the cab corners. I think we're gonna have to do the floor pans as well. I think all that stuff can be fixed, hopefully, but I don't think the tailgate can be fixed, and I don't think the bed can be fixed. We've just got too much of this rot going on, and it's pretty much all over the bed. This is obviously the outside of the bed, but I bet you the inside of this panel looks pretty much the same way this does. So we'd be cutting out 95% of the metal and trying to weld in new stuff, and that would just be that's just not practical. So I don't know what the solution for the bed and the tailgate will be, but that's something to put in our minds to think about for down the road. Sometimes you can find used beds that pop up for sale. Sometimes you can find used tailgates that pop up for sale. Like I said before, they do make a reproduction tailgate without the embossing, brand new, that we could use and weld this one in. That would be one solution for the tailgate. They also make a complete kit for a brand new bed. If I understood it correctly, they send you all the pieces in a box, and you just put it together and weld it up. Unfortunately, that's pretty expensive. I think they're asking like $5,000 for a complete bed kit. So that is an option, but it sure would be better and cheaper to find a used one somewhere. So besides the floors, like I mentioned before, we might have to replace the floor pans. The cab is in pretty decent condition overall. The dash is in pretty decent condition overall. We've got some holes here that will need to be either filled or covered with something else. We've got a nasty hole there that will need to be filled or covered. The rest of the dash looks pretty good. And then I also just noticed, if we look up here on the roof, on the inside, that's a big old patch of bondo that somebody didn't even bother to hide. So my guess is that there's probably a hole in the roof right there, and my guess is it was probably used for a CB antenna. The trim around the windscreen here will need to be re-chromed or replaced. Same with the trim around the side windows. The good news is the trim is actually in good condition. There's no bends in it anywhere. It's all nice and straight. Then of course we have the chassis and the front and rear differential, the axles, the brake drums, all the brake lines, the leaf springs. All that stuff underneath is good enough for a patina truck, but if we paint the body, we're not going to leave the chassis rusty. The good news is that the chassis is in good shape. I don't think we're going to have to do any cutting or welding on the chassis, knock on wood. But I think there will be a fair amount of maybe sandblasting and painting, because you can see the leaf springs over there are pretty rough. But the rest of the stuff under here is in pretty decent condition. I think that we can just maybe media blast that stuff and paint it. So after all that, I think I changed my mind. I think I'm going to push it back in the shop and tell my cousin to come get it. Only kidding, of course. With projects like this, when I go around the whole thing just to show you guys what we're up against, but then it kind of sinks into my own head that how much work this is actually going to be. But I keep reverting back to the way I operate on all of my projects. Really, I take it one step at a time, and that's the only way I can get through the big projects, because if you think about everything as a whole, it becomes too overwhelming. But she is really a good runner, so when we get all this body work and paint finished, this is really going to be a nice truck. It just seems like the road from here to there is a really long distance at this point. But the only way I can manage projects of this size is to take them one step at a time. For example, I'm going to start with the front driver's side fender. So we'll get this off the truck first, we'll get the paint removed, then we'll really be able to evaluate the fender as a whole and see what needs to be done. And this will be the first step of the project. So I'm going to shut it down and I'm going to get started right now. So let the games begin. Let's get this fender removed. I just wanted to show you where the mounting bolts are. There's 1, 2, 3. On this side that bolt into the front clip, and there are right back there I think there are 3 also that connect this part of the fender to the cab, and then I think there's a couple bolts under here. I will have to remove some stuff in here, but it's not terrible. I will have to remove this terminal block from the fender. I'll remove the horn and disconnect the horn wire. That's it. I think this must have been the original horn right there. So I've got all the fender mounting bolts removed. 2 of them broke, the rest of them came out okay, and I found some more rot. So let me get this off and I'll show you. All right, so this is the inner fender well. This is where the engine is. And this part actually looks pretty decent on this side. I found a new mouse house up here that I didn't know was there. That's lovely. We do have some rust here and there, but overall, the inside of this part looks okay. That's the good news. Let's check the inner fender well. And somebody in the past has sprayed or rolled on some type of a protective coating, but they didn't prepare the surface before they did it. So just like on the outside where the paint is, it's rusting from inside out. Can you see how it's lifting up here? That is severe rust. It hasn't rotted through yet because the side that I just showed you that looked good, that was the other side of this piece. I'll show you up in here. Also, they put that protective coating on pretty much everywhere, but it's just rusting underneath it as well. So I'm gonna have to get this all down to bare metal and then evaluate if this fender is even worth saving or not. Now this is the part of the fender, you know, that goes under the door, and this is somebody's patchwork. They put a piece of tin in here. It was riveted. I think there's 1, 2, 3 rivets that I ground the heads off of, and then there was also 1, 2, 3 Phillips metal screws in here going into the bottom of the cab. And the reason they put this patch here is because of this. This part here is the patch panel. I'm just going to bend it so you can see where it stops. So this fender has completely rotted away from here to here, and it's a jagged line over to here, pretty much all the way to the corner. So they had to put something in here that would hold a rivet and a screw and allow them to mount this to the body. See if we can take this patch all the way off here. It's not doing us any good. There we go. Now you get a good look at it. This is what's left of it right here. If I bring it around to this side, you can get a different perspective. See, the fender comes down straight and then it's got a bend to it. Well, that bend is supposed to continue from here all the way out to the end, and that whole section is completely rotten away. And now I even see some more patches. There's one that starts there and goes to there. Can you see that? This looks like it's got 2 rivets in it. There's another one that goes from there to there with 2 rivets. There's another one that goes from here to here with 1 rivet. So basically the whole section of the fender from here to the end is rotten and unsavable. So wow. I chose this fender because I thought this one might be the best one to start with, the easiest one, but it sure doesn't look like it. This is going to test my skills right out of the gate. So before I get too crazy and, you know, cut this off and start trying to fabricate a new piece, I need to figure out what gauge metal the original stuff is, because we want to try to match that so it's the same thickness or very close to it. I'm going to take a measurement up here where the metal is good, and we're going to see what we get here. So the metal in here is roughly 40 thousandths thick, which translates to 18 gauge metal, which is what I thought. I thought it was either going to be 18 or 16, but that's actually good news because 18 gauge is plenty strong enough to, you know, for a fender, but it's not so thick that we're not going to be able to work with it. So that is good news. Now we know what kind of metal to buy. Now, to satisfy my curiosity, the condition of the metal underneath all this crap, I'm going to take just a few sections here and grind it down to metal and see what it looks like. Obviously we're going to need to strip the whole thing to get a complete picture, but I was curious about some certain areas, so I just want to show you those real quick. This corner had a lot of mud in it, but metal looks pretty good there. Metal on top looks pretty good. So this is that part that had that severe rust in it that we were talking about. I did find some fresh metal, but she is heavily pitted, just like I said before. I would classify this as severe rust. So this is obviously the bad part that we were talking about earlier, and I came up a little ways on the fender. The metal actually looks decent out here where you can see it. So basically where this line is and in, you're not going to be able to see this part. But given the fact that this is going to be underneath the door, we might be able to just put a thin coat of body filler in there. I don't know yet. I'm just sort of thinking out loud as I go here. But this metal looks pretty good. What else did I do? The other option I'm going to check tomorrow is I'm going to see how much my local media blaster will charge me to blast this whole fender inside and out, because removing the paint on this entire thing inside and out and all the nooks and crannies, that would be a huge job just in itself. Yeah, it can be done, and we may end up going that route. But if the media blaster says, you know, he's not going to charge too much to do it, I think we would be ahead of the game if we just paid a few bucks to get that done and then spent our time fixing the fender, you know. Oh, I did another spot right here on the inner fender well that looks really good. And here we are about a week later. I've got the fender back from the sandblaster. He's the second guy that I found locally that does media blasting and powder coating. So it's really nice. I've got two local guys I can choose from to do this type of work. Now, if I'm being realistic and pragmatic about this, if I did this myself with my tools here in the shop and got all those layers of paint and body filler off down to this nice clean metal, first of all, I don't think I could have gotten it as nice as this. Second of all, I think I probably would have gone through 30 bucks worth of consumables, you know, sanding discs and sandpaper and whatever else I would have to use, you know, gloves or whatever. It'd probably cost me 30 bucks to do this by hand. So I'm a big fan of paying the 50 bucks and ending up with a product like this that we can work with. Anyway, let me show you how it all turned out. I'll try to hit the good parts first. Just like I said before, it's pretty obvious that this fender has never been crushed or dented or smashed or anything significant, because everything is still pretty straight. Even this little factory crease is just about perfect. So a lot of the metal in this fender is still good. Things like this, still pretty much as good as it was coming out of the factory. Even this section here that butts up against the cowl, very good condition. Let's come around to the inside of the fender. Remember that part that I showed you before that had some holes in it and some heavy pitting? Well, this is it. This is the back side of what I was showing you before. I'll flip the fender over here in a minute and get a better look at it. But there's holes from rot all right in here. The metal around it is all good, but it's rotten right in there. And this is all good. This is all good. You got some pitting in here, but it's not bad, and it's on the inside of the truck, so you'll never see this part. This flange here is actually a mount for the fender. The fender sits on the truck, and then you put two bolts in here. This is okay, but it's pretty thin. I don't think I'm going to have to replace this part because it's thick enough yet, and there's plenty of other mounting bolts to support the fender on the truck, so it's not like we're relying on this piece only. But it is a little bit thinner from pitting. Now we're getting into the really bad part. You can start seeing some heavy pitting and rot, and I don't know if you can see on camera, but those holes go all the way through. You can see the fender right in here is good, and this section right in here is good. Pretty much what I was showing you before with the paint on it, but this is all rot all the way through, and this is what's left of this part of the fender. And this is what's left of somebody's crappy patch job. We got rivets, and God knows what that stuff is. I don't know if that's old weld or if that's lead or what that might be. And if you look on the inside, if the camera will focus, we can see those patches a little bit better. Which is not a very good way to do it. So the section starting, you know, in here to there, and then maybe cut across to there, and then the whole rest of the section out to the tip, this needs to be replaced, this whole area. So that's going to be a bit of a challenge because it's got compound bends to it. It's got a lip here on the inside, and it's got a lip here on the bottom side as well. Then of course it's curved here, and it's curved here as well. So this is going to be a challenge. This is a section that I was saying is a little bit thin. We have a little bit of rot around this hole, so I don't know if we're going to replace this or not, because it's not that terribly bad. The rest of the fender coming down here looks pretty good, except for the fact we've got a lot of these cracks. And then we've got some metal bunching up here. I don't know how that occurred, but this is the part in here with all the heavy pitting and the holes. I think we might need to replace this whole section. I think that is probably the right thing to do. Coming down here to the front of the fender on the bottom, you can see a lot of this stuff is still good. These curves are still really nice looking, still flat, never been crushed. But this is somebody's old weld or something, because come around here to the other side, you can see it's split there, and they tried to weld it together, and it looks like they blew out the metal in attempting to do that. So that needs to be fixed. We've got another severe crack right there, another crack right there. We've got a little bit of pitting right there, but nothing significant. We can work with that. A little bit of a bend there, but the rest, you know, looks pretty good. So after the media blasting, the fender turned out pretty much like I thought it was going to. I'm glad we didn't find any surprises, because like I said, sometimes when the paint and the filler is that thick, you can't tell what's underneath it until you remove it completely. I already picked up a sheet of 18 gauge sheet metal, and it is right over here against the wall. The size of the full sheet was 4 by 10, and I had him cut it in half for me, so we've got 2 pieces of 4 by 5. And I did get 18 gauge, just like we talked about before. I could only carry these things like a few feet at a time, and then I'd have to set them down and kind of regrip, and then walk a few more feet and set them down and regrip. So they're a lot heavier than I thought they were going to be. So I have rearranged this entire corner of my shop just for this Willys truck project and the metal patching and the welding that we're going to have to do. And we've got some new tools to also assist with this job. I extended my workbench out to here and made it a little bit lower than the rest of it. And I've got a brand new box and pan brake up here. I'm excited to have this in the shop. I could make a whole video just on this tool alone. But just real quick, if you've never seen a metal brake like this, these plates in here are called fingers. And you can see they're all different sizes. We've got some narrow fingers down here, and they get a little bit wider and wider and wider, and then widest on the far end. And so by removing a couple of these fingers, you could take a piece of sheet metal, bend it this way, and then rotate it, bend it again, rotate it, bend it again, all the way around the piece of sheet metal until you had 4 walls of a box or 4 flanges. So this is a very versatile type of brake that we're going to get a lot of use out of. And again, we'll cover more of this in the videos coming up. We also have a metal stretcher and shrinker. What we can do with this is take a flat piece of sheet metal with a straight edge and curve that edge, either in or out, depending on which tool we use. I'll cover that more in an upcoming video as well. This machine is really cool. This is a bead roller. You can get different types of dies over here, and you can make things like this in sheet metal. This is just a piece of scrap. What they primarily do is strengthen the piece of metal, because once you have these beads pressed into the metal, it becomes difficult to bend the metal along the same path as the beads, where otherwise, like right in here, it's pretty easy to bend. But on the beads, it's not easy at all. It's very difficult comparatively. So basically what I'm saying is it adds strength to the piece of metal that you're working with. Like for a floor pan would be a good example. And again, you can get all kinds of different dies to make different types of impressions on metal for different types of reasons. And this one's made by Eastwood. It seems to be really good quality. And this one is power driven. So you just plug this into the wall, and there's a foot pedal that goes on the ground, and you just stick the piece of metal in between the dies and press on the foot pedal, and away she goes. Of course, you have to adjust the tension of it over here, which is something I'm learning, but it's not all that difficult. And you can also control the speed. So it doesn't take the metal in too quickly, and you can actually steer the bead of, either make a straight line or a curve or whatever you're trying to accomplish. But without the electric motor, you'd have a handle here, so you'd have to crank with one hand, hold with the other hand. It would almost become a two-person operation without an electric motor. But with it and the foot pedal, I can use both hands on the piece that I'm working with and really have good control. I've got my trusty MIG moved up here to the front of the shop. It was always back in the bowels back there, and it was always kind of a pain to drag it all the way out here. So it's going to be nice to have it right here where I can just pull it right out of the shop in just a few seconds. This machine over here is new to me. It's used, but this is a TIG machine. I saw this on Facebook Marketplace maybe a month ago now. It's an AC/DC Hobart TIG, and from my own personal experience, I know Hobart's a good brand, and if you guys didn't know this, Hobart is the same company as Miller. So the Miller is the top of the line for this company, and Hobart is the next line down. Very good stuff. If you guys didn't already know, MIG stands for metal inert gas, TIG stands for tungsten inert gas, but it's really a different animal from the MIG. It's really nothing like it at all in the way it functions. From what I can tell, there's a much bigger learning curve with the TIG than there is with the MIG. I don't plan on using this machine for the Willys project, at least not to start with, because the Hobart handler is going to do the job just fine for what we need. But I plan to make a series of videos in the future of me learning how to use the TIG. And if you guys are interested, subscribe to the channel, because I'm gonna start with me knowing nothing about it and sort of baby stepping the way through the process of learning how to use and learning how to weld with a TIG welder. I think it's going to be challenging, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And then once we have that skill under our belt, that gives you a lot more versatility for welding. I still need to rearrange and organize my new workbench here, because I'm not going to have stuff piled up on it like it is right now. I'm not going to start cutting and welding on this Fender today, because this is going to be a big project just in itself. So I'm going to save that for the next video, and I'm not sure how long this is actually going to take me. The good news is the project doesn't have a fixed timeline. So if it takes me 1 week to fix it, great. If it takes me 8 weeks to get this Fender fixed, then that's okay too. Anyway, there's your update on the truck. This is the first video of the next chapter of the project. It's going to be a challenge. Wish me luck. I hope to see everybody on the next video. Thanks for watching.